Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast brought to you by the hockeythinktank.com, website for all players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We are bringing on Mike Ratchuk, and what an unbelievable career this guy had. Grew up in the Buffalo area, played his junior hockey for the national team development program before going on to play 2 years at Michigan State, where he won a national championship. After that, he was drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round and went on to play parts of 12 seasons of professional hockey, where he won the ECHL championship with the Florida Everblades. It's called the Kelly Cup, and what a conversation this was. He is now the assistant coach for the Cortland State Red Dragons in Central New York. He also has done a lot of work with Mike Raja and Speed Skills Hockey, who we just had on the podcast not too long ago, and this was just an awesome conversation. But before we do get over to Ratter, let's bring on another awesome guy, the talent of the podcast, the one, Jehu, Jeffrey Lavecchio, blue check mark, not a big deal.
Is this episode going on YouTube? Are we putting this on YouTube?
We are, yeah. So, okay, guys,
that's awesome.
Just real quick here. So we are now a part of the Hockey Podcast Network, and in that, we now have this really cool website that we do our recording on. And it's really, really sweet. And so we can put this up on YouTube now. And like Steph, our producer, has like this ticker on the bottom as we're doing this. And Jeff Vecchio, blue check mark, not a big deal. There he is. Vex, what's happening today, brother?
Well, now I'm just laughing my ass off. Steph's got me. I respect it, Steph. Let's go. We need a link and some GMBM discount codes. All right, let's get on that. There we go.
And she puts it on, promo code GMBM. There we
Perfect.
go.
I'm doing great, man. This actually is so cool. Like the format that we have, and you know, for anybody who likes watching, like I used to always when I was playing, I would turn on Joe Rogan podcast while I cooked, but like on my TV, and it's like you could kind of listen, kind of watch whatever, you know, it just kind of gets you invested into whatever the people are talking about more. So if anybody's into that, if this is on YouTube, you know, you can at least see everybody talking and stuff. I just think you kind of get more into the conversation. So I'm honestly really excited about that. And a couple good things for me actually in the last little bit. Number one, it was 2 weeks ago. Patrick Johnson, one of my longtime clients, captain of Bismarck Bobcats in the Null. His sister's actually battling cancer. We, you know, a whole bunch of people helped put together this thing at the end of the summer for her, and she's doing really well. And right when he found out that everything is going really well with her, he actually committed to Robert Morris University,
Nice.
D1. So super happy for him. There's not a whole lot of people in the world that deserve something more than this kid for all the work he's put in since I've known him in the last like 5 years, probably. So it's really excited to see, you know, somebody who put everything on the line and, you know, got that cookie in the end is really cool to see. So just want to give a shout out to Patrick Johnson. And dude, last week I was up in New Hampshire with Bauer Hockey Company. That was pretty cool.
Would you care to elaborate?
I mean, I just, you know, I was just doing stuff with Bauer. I mean, it's like, you know, as a kid, you grow up and like, I don't know, like everybody has like kind of like a favorite gear manufacturer. For me, like Bauer was always it. Like Bauer, I wanted Bauer everything. And when they're like, hey, you want to come up to New Hampshire and do some work with us? For me, it's awesome stuff. For me, it was really cool opportunity to work with them. So that was super fun last week. I got to do that.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I actually just bought my my Pagey some Bauer skates, actually.
Oh yeah. What are they like? Some vapors or something?
I have no idea.
Do they have laces or do they have like clips or like Velcro? They're like little kid skates. Like they're like they can have like Velcro and stuff or whatever.
No, they have laces.
Oh, they got laces, all right?
They have laces, yes.
That's cool.
All the parents are like, Jeff is an idiot right now, but that's okay. We love
I don't watch little kid hockey. I don't watch little kid hockey.
That's awesome, man. Good stuff. Well, I know how much you've put your heart and soul and effort into building up your social media brand, and these are the fruits of your labor. Being able to collaborate and work with some of these really, really incredible companies. And I know there's more that are coming your way, and you're really close with a few more. And dude, it's really cool to see from afar.
Appreciate it, dog. Appreciate it. I also just started working with a USHL team online, Tri-City Storm, who I worked with for 2 years. One of the years they won, they had like the best record in USHL ever or something, or close, like 2 years ago, and or they were up there, and I think they won the league title. I worked with them that year. Didn't have them last year, and then Coach Noreen called me last week, so back to work with Tri-City and USHL. Also, Uncle Tim, guys, Uncle Tim, for our
Uncle
longtime
Tim,
listeners.
let's go.
We're going to have him back on the podcast soon. He just became one of the coaches of Team USA Floorball. And they hired a young Jehu Jeffrey Scott Lavecchio to train up the U19 Team USA Floorball. So I'm working with Team USA Floorball now as well too.
There you go. There you go.
Pretty exciting.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Happy for you. I've got some fun stuff on the hopper too. Actually, just last night hopped on a Zoom call with a youth organization up in St. Albert, Alberta, and one of the top youth organizations out there. And they do such a good job. And we hopped on a call with their executive director, Jane, a few weeks ago. And it's really cool, actually. They have this athlete advisory council where they actually meet with these basically the leaders of a bunch of their teams, throughout the year to get some feedback on how things are going and getting their feedback on how they can do things better as an organization. And so they had me in to speak to their leaders, and I talked to them about building resiliency through positivity. And it's just really cool when youth organizations go above and beyond to try and have an impact positively on their kids. And teaching leadership development and bringing in people from the outside to really provide some perspective for them, and just really, really awesome. So shout out to that youth organization, St. Albert, up in beautiful Alberta. And yeah, just really, really cool to be able to connect with so many different organizations. And now that I've gone to Hockey Think Tank full time, dude, it's like almost every night I'm on a Zoom call, or I'm in a rink, either doing team building with players, or doing coaching workshops with coaches, or doing parent seminars. I've done a ton of parent seminars, and it's just, man, like, it's so cool to be able to learn from so many of these great people in the youth hockey world and beyond, and just, man, live our values and live our mission of making a positive impact on the hockey world,
Dude, that's so cool. I'm so happy for you. Anybody's listening to this, like, work with this guy. Like, you're a dummy if you're a team manager or a coach. No, I'm serious. Like, you can affect so much positive change. I talked to the guys who, Toph came down here to St. Louis last week and worked with Maryville University, a team that I'm the strength coach for during the season. And, just talking to the guys after you left, like, it was super impactful. It was just really cool stuff. And believe in what you do. So anybody out there, don't be a dummy. Hire Toski.
I like it. All right, so let's get over to Mikey here, dude. This was such an awesome conversation. Like,
yeah, stay till the end, guys, because it gets real deep towards the end. And
yeah, this was
powerful stuff.
I think it's always incredible to have people on who truly are vulnerable. And I think we have a lot of people that do that on our podcast. I think they know what our podcast is about and what our mission is. And so people open up about the good, the bad, and the ugly in their careers. And, Mikey is a guy who really bared his soul on the podcast here. And it was really, really impactful. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this one. And so, yeah, I'm really excited for our listeners to get this one. I know this is going to be one of the most shared, most listened to, most downloaded, whatever it may be. And yeah, you guys are going to love this one. What are your overall thoughts, Vex?
Yeah, it's a powerful one for sure, especially, like I said, towards the end. Make sure you guys stick around all the way to the end, because it gets intense at the end, and it's something that people need to hear. And it's also something like Toph and I always talk about. You never want to be the guy who, looking back, being like, man, I wish somebody would have told me this, or I wish I would have made that decision or this decision. And so just, always trying to make the best decisions you can for what your goals are is massively important. So this is a powerful one, and this is from really good hockey player. I played against Mike. I'm sure we probably played against each other in the AHL, maybe. We were in different divisions, but I played against him 2 years in college, and he was nasty. He was
So good.
absolute game changer. Could literally go end to end with the puck as a D man, and when we played college hockey, it was basically football on skates. So that was no small feat because you had to dodge the gauntlet of everybody just like monsters just trying
The
to
Jeff
murder each
Leckios of
other.
the world, these big tattooed dudes
The
just trying
Chris
to take your head
Franks of
off.
the world, man.
Ooh.
Just
Yeah.
monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, before we get over to Mikey, we do have some people to thank. First, want to thank our title sponsor, Gel Sticks, GELSTX.com. Go there. And if you use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, you will get a discount on your weighted training sticks. The pros use them. The college team use them. The junior teams use them. The Jeff Leckios of the world use them in their gym and on the ice. And so just a phenomenal product. They not only have hockey sticks, but they have golf clubs and they have lacrosse sticks as well. Just great weighted training aids. So go to gelsticks.com, GELSTX.com today and use the coupon code ThinkTake. Go, Jeffrey.
Guys, I've been with Gel Sticks since the year, like almost the month after I retired. They sent me a prototype or like one of their first models, and right away I was like, holy crap, like literally I love this thing. I freaking love this thing. I had an OHL player who I do mentorship calls with, like once every 2 months for the last couple years, and he bought a gel stick last year, and they had a rapid shot at his rink, and within, I think it was like 14 days, his shot went up 10 miles per hour. Like, it's unbelievable. That's a guy who's already in OHL. Like, that's to put 10 miles per hour when you're already at that age is awesome. So these things actually work. We really do believe in gel sticks. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I want to say thank you to Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the amazing app that houses all of my online training. From training Division I, Alaska Fairbanks right now, Division III, Lawrence University, Boston Hockey Academy, Mercer Chiefs, Wisconsin Wendigo in the Null, Tri-City Storm in the USHL, young teams, midget teams, any teams out there that are looking to train smarter or have home workouts, home mobility programs for your players to help them get more out of their bodies here to help them further their hockey career. I'm always down to help. Train Heroic makes all that possible. So just want to say thank you to Train Heroic. Also want to say thank you to Cured Nutrition CBD. I got it right here since we're on YouTube. Cured Nutrition, literally. I use the CBD twice a day, every single day. Massively helpful for your brain, for functioning, and also just like your insides, your health. If anybody has any questions on CBD, please do not hesitate to reach out. I know quite a bit about it because, as you guys know, I've had 14 concussions, so I got to be really proactive with my brain here. So yeah, go to curenutrition.com. My discount code is GMBM.
There we go. And thank you to Helios Hockey. This is an unbelievable product. They give you a sensor that you wear in your shoulder pads, and it gives you instant data, instant feedback on how you are playing. They have these cool things called the hustle score. It can tell you how much you're hustling, how hard you're working, and it's all data driven. Really, really cool. It helps you to understand your stride length, your stride mechanics, just an incredible feedback tool for how you skate. And, one of the things that Vex and I are so pumped about this is it actually cuts all your shifts up for you. So you play a game, boom, cuts your shifts up. You instantly have it right after the game that you can watch. And so valuable for kids, so valuable for coaches as well to have that instant feedback, to be able to provide video analysis to your players. Just goes a long way. A lot of video learners nowadays with kids in front of screens all day long. And so just really, really cool. So what we have is we have a discount code with them as well. Go to helioshockey.com. And if you use the coupon code, again, ThinkTank, one word, you will be given a 20% discount off your initial 12-month membership. And you will get that sensor to put in your shoulder pads for free. So Vex, what do you got?
Like, guys, we talk about, especially for younger players, like you don't have to go to every summer tournament or every showcase or every this or every that. Don't go to one of those and do the Helios thing. Getting your shifts clipped for you automatically to your phone right after a game will literally make you an instantly better hockey player if you just watch that video, take notes, and learn from all your shifts. Like this is just for that alone. And then obviously the technology that the hustle score and like being able to compare your hustle score versus a kid who's playing in Sweden or something and their hustle score of the day, and you could see how you match up. And like there's all these other things, the mechanics of your skating stride, are you working harder on your right side and your left side? But like those are all like amazing bonuses. I think like the coolest part of this is like clips of your games immediately right away. For me, this is a no-brainer.
Totes. So like I said, go to helioshockey.com, use that coupon code ThinkTank, and get that awesome discount. And lastly, thank you to icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for all your coaching education needs. Thousands of drills for you to draw upon, unbelievable whiteboard explanations from some really impactful hockey people in the hockey world. I mean, this website is incredible. You said it's an absolute no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. And we have partnered with them to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach within your organization. I work with a few different organizations that have this, and it is an absolute game changer. Absolute game changer, because you can share drills with other coaches, you can share practice plans, draw them up, send them out to your team, send them out to other people's teams. If you're like, let's say you're a Pee Wee hockey director, you can send your Pee Wee hockey coaches to send things to your Pee Wee hockey players. Dude, like this is an absolute no-brainer. So go to icehockeysystems.com today and look up the associations platform and get this. And also it helps out the parents as well, because they have access to the Hockey Think Tank Parent Survival Guide. And I love how the first time we're doing this on YouTube. So listeners, you got to go to YouTube now. He is massaging himself with a gun, with his Theragun, and some pretty funny facial expressions. Anyway, icehockeysystems.com. Go to the associations platform and get it today. Listeners, thank you guys so much. Last week was our 5th year anniversary of starting the Hockey Think Tank podcast, and we appreciate you guys so incredibly much. We appreciate all the support, every like, every comment, every download, every rating, every follow. It just goes such a long way for us to be better when you're providing us some feedback, and it goes such a long way to legitimizing our podcast to people that may not have heard us before. And we have so many ratings, we have so many reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcast. And we just appreciate that so much. So thank you so much from everything that we have for continuing to support our podcast. And we continue to do this thing to make a positive impact on the hockey world. And this podcast episode with Mikey Ratchuk is going to make a positive impact on the hockey world. So without further ado, here we go with Mike Ratchuk. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast. He's up in Central New York, my old stomping grounds. We got Mike Ratchuk. Mike, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well, buddy. Thanks so much for having me.
We are so pumped to have you. And Vex, you should have seen this guy at the Cornell Hockey Racker Center charity game.
Buzzing out there, going end to end like it was college hockey in 2006.
The tough part, it was one of the best games of my playing career. I retired for 5 years. That was a good one.
He was electric. He had the fans just buzzing, and huge pickup, huge draft pick for me to have him on my team. So that was the most important thing. He helped us win.
That was awesome. That was a good time. I had a great time.
That was fun. And so, hey man, like we're so excited to have you on here, and let's introduce you to our listeners. You have such an awesome hockey story, come from just an amazing family. And so if you grew up right outside of Buffalo, New York. Talk a little bit about how you fell in love with a great game of hockey.
So it was easy for me. I had 5 older siblings who all were, everything was around sports. And my brother, who was 10 years older, Pete, played hockey. And since I was the only other boy to come around, I think my sisters were in the street with us. They played street hockey, mini sticks. They never, ever shied away from playing, but they played basketball, lacrosse, soccer. They were unbelievable athletes, the 4 of them. But my brother he got me into it right away. And I did and do. I always thought my brother was the coolest thing in the world. So it was whatever he was doing, I wanted to do and do it the same way. And he was a defenseman. I was a I tried to kind of emulate everything. So it was fairly quick between him and Rock'em Sock'em, Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em tapes. I was pretty addicted early on.
Hey, dude, every time I would go up to Toronto or somewhere in Canada to play when I was younger, the first thing that we would do is we would find the nearest hockey shop and we would buy the latest Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em VHS
Yep.
video. And oh my God, like
Let's go.
I don't think it's unbelievable. I don't think there's anything. I don't know if there's been anything like that since he stopped doing it. They were incredible. They were
unbelievable.
They were unbelievable.
What was that song that, like, let's go. He can dangle, he can score. Who else? Bobby Orr. Let's go.
Mario. Jaeger.
Maslin. No wonder he doesn't like. Yeah, he was incredible. My brother and I would sit and watch it and repeat.
He would just rip on the Euros too, like relentlessly. He'd always chirp the Euro players.
Always.
Loved Canadians.
He would always, Europe. It's a nice place to visit, but stop sending us hockey players. All right?
Oh my God. I love it. Well, you mentioned that, and it's funny, like, you're the youngest of 6. Mm-hmm. And I have to imagine, just talking off air a little bit, like you talked about how your brother helped you fall in love with the game of hockey and your sisters made you extremely competitive and taught you your compete level. Like, did you guys compete literally at everything you did? Whether it was who can be first at the dinner table to get food, to the street hockey in the street, to probably Pictionary or whatever too? Like, was it just a really competitive household?
I'm 35 years old, and if I go home and we have a family dinner and I say I'll be the first one there, and I am, there's a little bit of an edge for the like there's that we don't like to lose, and it's funny because I say that to like any kid that I coach, I always say, like, that's something I'm so grateful that they taught me. Was we have videos of my poor sister Jill, who's a nurse practitioner now. I say poor sister because she was always in hockey equipment playing with me, but nurse practitioner. She played basketball. She scored 1,000 points in high school basketball. She was an unreal athlete. But we have videos of her in a helmet, full gear, pants, shoulder pad, the whole thing, in our driveway playing. And South Buffalo's a small neighborhood, so its houses are tight, driveways are tight, and but that was kind of our arena. So we have knockout basketball tournaments at family parties, and my sisters were the basketball players, so that's a very competitive game of knockout. It's like, to me, it's awesome though. I love it. It's still the same way.
Now, being the youngest of everybody, do you have a lot of nieces and nephews? 9. And are they as competitive as you guys were when, like, you get around for the family, or are they still a little bit young for that?
So it's funny that you say that, because I have, off the top of my head, like, my nephew Sam. He is like, he's a kid, like, he doesn't, same way I was when I was a kid, gets real fiery, like, doesn't like to lose, doesn't like to make a mistake. That's my brother's son, Sam. My nephew, Liam, my godson, is a goalie, and it's actually cool to me because he's become like a student of goal. Like, he really, really gets into it. But I'll sit in the corner during a game and he gets scored on, and he looks over at the family, goes like this, and puts his, like, he's very like, water off a duck's back. He doesn't really, but he loves to play. And it's kind of hit or miss between the 9 of them. It's balanced out.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, how cool was it growing up? You mentioned your brother. He was a first-round draft pick to Colorado. Had the chance to go up and play major junior up in Hull. What was that like? Because that was in your formative years. I think you mentioned you were around 10 years old when he first started playing pro hockey. Probably a little bit younger than that when he was. It probably looked like pro hockey to you when he was playing major junior and stuff, and you got the chance to see him play so much. Like, how awesome of a resource was that to have somebody that kind of went through it? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, you ended up being a pretty high round draft pick too, and you played for the national development program. What was it like to have him as an influence that have already gone through it before, especially being 10 years older than you and having a little bit of the benefit of having some foresight into the do's and don'ts going up? What was those conversations like as you were going through the process?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely badgered him with phone calls, probably more than he would have liked, but he was, I can still, as far as watching him play and thinking it was professional, like I remember I didn't go to Shattuck right before he went to Shattuck. He went to Lawrence Academy prep school for a year, and I had gone to see him there a few times. I still remember, it's like a movie in my head. I can still remember we were at the hotel and my dad was driving him to campus. So we were saying goodbye to him at the hotel and we were getting on the road to leave. And like a movie, I still remember his arm out the window, like wave. And I was like, oh, like it was like it was the first time he was leaving, home. So every chance we got, we went to go see him. And, even throughout his career when he played in Europe, when he was in Europe, it was back when they had like the tickers of like what the goals and assists were a penalty minute. Like, so my dad would sit pretty much the whole game and he'd watch the whole.
Oh, you mean like online? There wasn't video. There was just a ticker, like a stock market thing.
Picture of the two team logos, and then just moving, followed
That's so awesome. Because I'm sure a ton of our listeners have no idea what you're talking about. Like the younger ones.
I'm like, oh, Dad, he's playing great. Yeah.
2 shots, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was incredible to have him, and I think it took till I probably didn't really fully appreciate until after I retired the fact that he didn't have what I did. Like he didn't have an older brother that went through, so like a lot of the things I was coming to him for with questions was stuff that he had to learn kind of on his own. So it made me respect him even more than I already did.
Do you remember any of the advice or any of the conversations that you had? Because we obviously have a lot of kids that listen to this podcast who have hopes and dreams of playing in similar spots that you did and playing high levels of hockey. Do you remember any of those conversations, any tips of the trade, any kind of advice that he had for you as you were kind of going up and you knew that hockey was going to be a thing and you're pretty good and you end up at the NTDP and then you go out to Michigan State and stuff? Like, what was the advice that he gave you at the time, if you can remember?
I got to be honest, the thing that stands out the most in my head that I heard from both him and from my dad, my mom, was everything was never stop skating. Was kind of repeated all the time. Don't stop your feet. Don't stop your feet. Don't stop moving your feet. No matter what, don't stop. Like I would be on, was playing pro in the middle of my 20s and would call my, mother to check in with her on a game day and, okay, just make sure, skate, move your feet, and that was always kind of, that was kind of repetitive in my head. So, but yeah, for my brother, it was the two of us were, again, I watched him and I wanted to play the exact same way. And he was an offensive puck moving defenseman. And that's what I always wanted to be. I loved skating the puck up the ice, and that was kind of honestly, that was the when he sees this, he'll be insulted that I didn't come up with better advice that he told me. that was kind of the most repetitive that we used to talk about, was never stop skating. And
and you never did. Played against Mike here in college hockey for 2 years, and guys getting the puck winding up behind the net. He better be ready. It's coming. He's probably going coast to coast.
Yeah, I miss those days. I used to love it. Yeah, I was actually lucky enough. It's funny when you say advice. I had a coach when I was probably 12, 13 years old, Brian Dowd. He was a Canadian. I played in the American League, the East Coast League. One of the best coaches I had, especially at that young of an age. And he randomly brought in, again, what your listeners about VHS tapes of Bobby Orr highlights. It was all Bobby Orr montages, and he would just quietly kind of hand it to me and go, just take that home and watch that and keep watching it. Watch what he does. And I used to I would listen to how they talked about him, like Derek Sanderson, Phil Esposito, all the way they talked about how he changed the game. And, so that was like gospel. I came home from school and I would sit and eat and watch and then I would go play. It was, rinse and repeat every day.
That's awesome, man. Well, let me ask you this, because this is a really relevant question for a lot of defensemen that are kind of growing up and have this elite skill and have some ability above and beyond kind of their peers. when was it when like the offensive stuff, it wasn't enough? Like, when was it when you were really like coached to play on the defensive side of it too? Because I feel like a lot of kids growing up, and I think it's great. I think you should coach offense. Like that can be a separator for you and teaching you how to think the game and try to create offense. But like, when was it when like defensive habits, defensive structure, and that kind of thing was really kind of hammered in on you? Like, if you want to be a really elite player, you can't just, score 100 points, but potentially B minus 50. And I'm not saying you are, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
I was pretty
you got to
close.
play both ways.
I was pretty close. Vex will tell you it wasn't far off. Yeah, I would say I would easily point that to when I was at the national program. I was very, very fortunate to play for John Hines, who coaches in Nashville now. And at that time, at 16 to 18, easily one of the most frightening human beings I'd ever been around. But he was maybe one of the best things that ever happened to me, my hockey career, turning into, the kind of man that I like. He was there. It's amazing the stuff that he talked to us about at 16 that I will randomly kind of click back into and go like, yeah, it's crazy to me, but he was an animal about competing. Our game warm up was like 2-on-2 battle drills. Like he was, we had I played with, like, our team was Eric Johnson, Pat Kane. I mean, I could name the whole team, but Ratchuk played in Europe for a long time. We came in one time in between periods of a game where he said that we weren't competing hard enough. So I remember I was one of the first guys to go. I'm not sure why, but Mikey Carmen from Minnesota, I'll never forget. Carm, get up. And we both kind of look at each other and tells us to put our helmets on and our gloves. And we start like locker box / wrestling each other.
No way.
In between periods.
I'm not lying to you. And then he blows the whistle like we're in practice. Okay. And he names 2 other guys. And I sit back down. I'm like, are you okay? Like, I didn't, you know what I mean? I was like, we're in the middle of a game. But he was very big on, if you're playing in a playoff game or you're playing mini sticks with your niece and nephew, like, a part of you should never want to lose. Like, that should always be in you to never lose. So he was tough for sure. He was tough, but he was one of those guys that was like, the older you get, everybody's going to be good offensively. So you have to be a nutcase defensively. Plus, I wasn't a big guy. I was 5'11" if I stretched good that day. I 185 maybe. So that was what he taught me, was defensive zone, how to really compete. Stick on puck. He was religious about stick on puck, and to this day, I talk about it on a daily basis because I'm like, it was the best thing I was ever taught, was stick on puck defense. So yeah, that was John Hines was the guy who really kind of rewired that for me.
We've talked about that on the podcast like literally 8 billion times, how massively important stick on puck is. But like, we can't even say it enough. Like, that changed my game too in juniors.
The way I say to the guys in Cortland that I coach now is, to me, stick on puck is like going like this to somebody's face. Like,
yeah,
not
like
like
that.
It's like an annoying. It's just, you're always kind of right, there. And that's once you get that kind of down, it's hard to play against someone who's good at that. You know what I mean?
It's terrible. It's actually awful when you play against guys with really good sticks, and it's like, is your stick just everywhere on the ice? Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
I can't stick handle, I can't shoot, I can't make a pass. It's always in my face. I like how you use that analogy, because it was the same for me. For anybody listening, Toph and I give speeches all the time to teams, and we talk on the podcast, and it's like, literally something as simple as really learning how to always be stick on puck when you don't have the puck will literally change your player's game. Like, it creates offense, it makes your defense better. It's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned it, you said hard to play against. I think there's a misnomer. People think hard to play against is like you're going to beat somebody up, and it's just this really physical affair type stuff. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, I mean, that's obviously hard to play against. You don't want to get beat up all game, but at the same time, like, I think of gaps. Team that is always above you and always tight on you. Playing against.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're just like playing against guys who are really good with their stick pressure, playing against defensemen who are always boxing you out and you can't get to the front of the net. Playing against forwards who are just hounds on loose pucks. Like, it's not necessarily like just beat you up, knock them down, drag them out, bare knuckle boxing type stuff. It's just the little defensive habits done really, really well at the end of the day, to me, is what really defines hard to play against.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's to me, that's what makes it hard to, like, it's hard to do that all the time. So like, that's what, when you're good at it, it's so hard to play against. Like you said, it's, to me, it's not, it doesn't have to do with, like, I would say I got maybe 2 fights in my career. I think one was in practice. And I don't know if I won either one of them. So like, but to me, it was relentless competing. Like, everything was about competing and just always showing up, as far as just taking pride in stick battles, races to the, like, everything is a personal, thing, is the way I always looked at it.
Totally, man. Well, you mentioned you go to the national program for midget hockey, and you get there, and who's there to play against you? You got Eric Johnson, #1 overall pick. You got Patrick Kane, #1 overall pick. What was that like for you, especially as a competitive guy, going from midget hockey? All of a sudden, you're surrounded by some of the best players in the world, future first round picks or first overall picks in the NHL, and obviously a lot of other talent. Was it a pretty big transition for you? Was it something that took you some time to kind of get used to? What was the transition like from midget hockey to playing at the national program, particularly for a guy as hard to play, or as hard, I shouldn't say as hard to play for, but a guy that was as demanding on the little things as Heinze is?
Yeah, it was, to me, it was like, practices were incredible. They were so hard, but looking back, they were incredible. It's funny, you look top to bottom of the roster, and like, when you do different drills 3-on-2, it's like everybody was good. And that was the first thing that we were taught, really, was like, guess what? You're not the superstar anymore. Like, everybody here just came from being the best guy on their team. Now you're all at the same level. You got to figure out your role. You got to compete every day. And for me, I don't know if there was there was definitely an adjustment, but I never really was I definitely wasn't an arrogant kid. Like, I didn't really think overly.
Buffalo guy.
I was, what's that?
You're a Buffalo guy. You can't be arrogant being from Buffalo.
Yeah.
You
right.
beat up.
You get slapped around if you really can't. So that's another reason I'm thankful for growing up there. But yeah, that's why I think that was a big part of, I think I went into it really expecting. I think the adjustment was, wow, everybody's good. Everybody passes well. Everybody, like, that part was the adjustment. But I knew going into it, okay, everybody is good. My defense, like, all other 6-7 defense, everybody is good. So it was an unbelievable learning experience, and something I'm so grateful for.
That's awesome, man. Well, you go from the national program to play at Michigan State, and your freshman year, you guys win a national championship. And Vex, what was it? It was probably 2-3 months ago. We had Brian Renfrew on, well, I guess even more family connection. He's working for Winnipeg as a scout, and your brother's the head of scouting for Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Maybe for recruiting you, he was good at his job, but
Yeah.
what was that like going into Michigan State? And Rennie was talking about on our podcast, like, guys, if you haven't listened to that one with Brian Redford, it's one of the most downloaded that we've had. He's a scout for Winnipeg right now, and he coached that Michigan State team that won the national championship that year. And some of the stories he was telling us just about the culture and the guys, and we know, like, Lurgy and Zach McClellan, guys that we've played with, Jeff Dunn, just what a group. So, like, what was that year like for you, especially coming in as a freshman, getting inundated into the culture and stuff? It must have been pretty special, obviously, winning the national championship at the end of the day.
Well, it was, yeah, I remember the older guys telling us how spoiled we were. like we didn't have to go through the losses the first couple of years. But I remember I actually just recently talked to someone about when I went on my official visit to Michigan State, and I'll never forget it. Timmy Kennedy and Chris Mueller were playing at State, who were two Buffalo guys. Timmy, next to my brother, was probably the second coolest guy to me as far as a hockey. But I like vaccine, like he was
And
one
just
of
a
those guys,
beauty.
quiet, kept doing, like
Just a quiet, savage murderer.
and just very confident in what he could do, but not loud about it.
Right.
Like just, and
Gross at hockey.
He grew up right around the corner from me, and so did Patty. Like we had a lot of guys kind of in our neighborhood, but so Timmy being there was in my head. We played together in high school, and I was like, oh, this would be awesome. We can play together again. So when I went to my visit, it was Coach Comley. Brenny was probably there. And then it was Timmy, Chris Mueller, and Bry Lerg. And we kind of were walking around the campus. And I remember still to this day, I had this weird but real strong feeling of it felt like my own neighborhood. Like it just felt like I had just driven home. Like it was a weird, comfortable feeling. And I'll never forget, Brian, we're walking. My dad is with the coaches. Timmy and Chris are in front of me, and then me and Lurgy are next to each other. And and again, like both you guys, like Bry had the big, long, curly blonde hair, wore number 11, good looking guy, top, like big scorer, like another guy, cool as could be, like, so he's walking next to me, and he kind of like nudges me at one point. I look over, and he goes, you're coming, right? And I was like, and I remember in my head going like, oh, like the cool guy at the party wants me. And I had never had like, and I almost was like, yeah, sure, I'll come, but I go, yeah, I don't know, I think so. Like, I remember leaving and going like, this is it, like this is for sure, it's not even a question. And it was, I actually drove back there a couple months ago for the Michigan State weekend, and the Jamie Weir, who was our media relations director, as soon as I walked in, she's like, Ratter, so happy to see, like, and it was just it was like I was just there a week ago, you know what I mean? It was like it's always had kind of that pull for me. So but yeah, the Jeff Lerg being our goalie, it was like I've never seen anybody so disciplined. Hardworking is almost like it's such an understatement to say hardworking. Like he was like a absolute freak about his daily approach. He was one of those guys that you could check the clock at certain times and you would know right where he was. Everything was, but everything was done the right way, on time. Everything was done right. He was like a machine about how he approached the game. It was really, really cool to be around that. But yeah, we had that to win it that first year. It was very spoiled for us as the freshmen, but yeah, we had an unbelievable group of guys.
That's cool, man. Well, let me ask you this, because you won World 18 gold. You won a national championship at Michigan State. You won a Kelly Cup in the East Coast League. So you've obviously been around some winning programs and some winning teams. And I'm a freak about finding out the why. Like, why are specific teams successful? And for you, having won at different levels and different times of your career, I think it's really interesting to hear from you. Like, what do you think it is, like, between those three teams and even taking on some of the experiences of maybe some of the teams that you were on that maybe weren't so good? What do you think is in the DNA of championship teams? Like, what are some prerequisites almost that you need to have to be able to put yourself in a position to win a championship at the end of the day?
So I think that one of the maybe more of a cliche one, but an obvious one, is the buy-in part of it. Like once you remove ego, and it's actually, you can actually feel that guys really care about, like to me, the guys that I coach now at Cortland, I'm very big. I'm a mushy guy. Four sisters. I've always been a softer kind of guy as far as off the ice. And to me, that was always repetitive things with teams that either won championships or did really well was we genuinely loved each other and loved coming to the rink and being around each other. And
so how do you build that? The teams that you had that you genuinely loved it. Was there stuff you did? Were you guys proactive? Did it just happen to be you guys all had similar interests?
I think it was a lot of times there was proactive, but like I remember teams that where we won, it was, we would do, once a week, we would do like hibachi dinners, or we would go, I remember playing in Wheeling. I was there for 2 years and we didn't win a championship, but one of the best teams that I played on, and we would go bowling like twice. Like I would go up to the marker board and we would make teams and go bowling, go to dinner. Like, so part of it is that like I was big on a big thing with me, which young kids are going to hate. But a big thing with me was when we went to team dinners, get your phone calls and your texts done on the bus. Get everything done and have it in your pocket, and let's sit and tell stories and talk. And that's, I've always been old fashioned, but that's a huge thing with me, is like when you're at home or you're on your alone time, that's when you can stare at like, obviously people, you have stuff to do. You got to check in, you got family, you got to be, but, that was a big thing with me, was being present, be around each other. Really, I think if it has to be forced, you can tell that it's forced, and it's probably,
and that's the worst.
Yeah. And unfortunately it didn't happen a lot, but I'm sure we've all had some part where it was like, oh, this just doesn't feel right. But that was a big thing to me. It was genuinely caring about each other, loving each other. And I think it was just that everybody kind of having that tenacity about hating to lose. I think when I played in Florida, we won the Kelly Cup, I distinctly remember we had such a confidence in the way that we, like the systems we had, our special teams, we had such a confidence in our team setup that when we would, even in the playoffs, we would lose a game and there wasn't any like worry, anger. Like it was almost just like, okay, well, we got an extra game to play now this round, like that. Like, and it wasn't an arrogant thing. It was just, okay, well, we know that we'll get to that point because we've taken care of everything leading up to it. So it was a lot of attention to detail, and really being present, being there every day, not being in a rush to get out of the rink. But I think to me, I think, like we said, if it's forced, you can tell. I think it's got to be a thing where you just have to be present around each other and really learn about each other, get to know each other, get to know why guys are the way they are. And then the on ice kind of takes care of itself.
It's so true, man. It's so true. And when you boil it down to kind of what you were saying, like you got to get the right people on the bus, and like the players, they have to be competitive. You have to be competitive. You mentioned like practices being harder than games. You have to be competitive. So you have to have people that are competitive, and you have to have people that buy in and love each other.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have those two things, I can pretty much guarantee you're not chip.
Yeah.
At the end of the
that's
day.
trouble. Yeah.
And so I want like all the kids out there to really take what Ratter just said right there, and like going out to dinner together, doing things together away from the rink is so massively important to building culture and to building love, because guys who do that are going to buy in more at the rink. Guys who do that are going to block shots for each other more at the rink, or take hits to make plays, or have short shifts and not be so self-centered around what their career is going to be like, And so like those little things are so incredibly important. And like, I don't know any championship team of any team that I've been on or anybody that I've spoken to who didn't have those things that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Extremely competitive people, extremely close-knit as a group, and like genuinely bought into what we were doing. And that's how you develop swagger.
Yep.
Like what you're talking about is swagger. I know from those Michigan State teams because I played against those teams. My first 2 years at Cornell, it was the 2 years before you got there, but like they had freaking swagger, man. Like they had swagger
Yeah.
with and then just knowing some of the guys in the room and having Lurgy on the podcast and playing with Zach McClellan and Dunner and stuff. Like, like there was a genuine love in that room and stuff.
Oh,
and it's
God,
just man, and just hearing you talk about it, like that's so if there's leaders out there in on hockey teams, like make sure that you're doing things socially together as a group. You might not think it's a big thing, but it is such a big thing.
And to me, I say it to I had the boys laughing the other day because Shane Gillis,
Hilarious.
So good.
Yeah.
He had a skit the other day about every coach has said I'd kill to put the pads on with you boys again. And so I'll randomly, I say that to the guys, serious and joking, like every other day. But like piggybacking on those dinners, like that stuff doesn't happen when you leave the game. Like you don't get that anymore. Like that's, so that's a big, I say it to the guys all the time. Like it's hard to look at it that way because you're here now and you're young, but like it doesn't happen like that when you leave the game. So like grab onto it while it's here, get close to each other, like it's really important.
100%. And Toph, I used to be around that Michigan State team a lot, like because I was boys with Lurgy, and my girl from college used to go to Michigan State, and she'd always be hanging out with Lurgy, and they were different, man. Like your guys' connection, like 100%, like just being around them. And I was around them a lot that year too, the year that they won it all. And it just like, coming from Western Michigan, we were having a good year that year actually for us. But like the difference in like how everybody like treated each other, like I don't know, just like at parties, like it felt like it was a bunch of like actual brothers. I know it sounds so cliche, and it was just like they all fit together. It was like so interesting to see the unbelievable genuine chemistry on that team.
Yeah, I was very lucky, man. I was very lucky to be a part of it. I appreciate you saying that because it really was. It was, I was lucky, boy. I miss those guys a lot. It was a good time.
Yeah, for sure. So you win your national championship in Michigan State. You play one more year, and then you decide to go and try your hand in pro hockey. And that's a jump, man. Like that's a jump. What was that transition like for you? It's something that we ask a lot of the guys that come on the podcast that are fortunate enough to make that jump. But how much different was it? And what was that transition like for you?
It was different at first. And I remember, it's actually funny now that we were just talking about Lurgy. I remember that the night before I signed my contract, our season just ended my sophomore year. So it was like a week of us kind of going out together and, kind of relaxing. The season just ended. And so we had to get together at somebody's house. And I knew that I was signing the next day, but I wasn't going to tell anybody until the next day. And Lurgy and I had the same agent. So he used to jokingly call me Big Ticket because he had heard that I might sign. And what's up, Big Ticket? He'd say, like whatever. So the night before I was going to sign, we were all hanging out. And I thought it was Lurgy. I don't want to put that on him if it wasn't him, but I think it was Lurgy. But one of the older guys was like, yeah, like I know that you're thinking about going, but like I would honestly consider staying another year. Like I think it would be good for you. Like I think it would be it'd be better for you. I think you need like another. And I was like trying to hold it in and go like, I want to tell this guy because I got what he was saying, but I'm like, it's too late. I'm already. So I go, yeah, no, maybe you're right. I don't know. I got to think about it. Like I just kind of kept it to myself, but it was, but I mean, it was, I had Ryan Patolny was on Philly when I first got there. Nate Gennon. There was a couple of European guys that were just incredibly, I remember going like, wow, this is like a different game. And my second or third game we played in Hershey. And there was a 5-on-5 brawl. Our goalie, Martin Oul, French guy, I'll never forget. He is at the blue line and he's looking at our coach. And our coach is like, yeah, go. And he darts down the ice. And I'm watching 8,000 people go nuts. I was like, holy hell, like this is like, this is pro hockey. It's different. So, but I fell in love with it, all of it. Like, same thing we talked about, the team dinners, the pregame skate, like all of it. I loved it. But I was a guy that unfortunately, and it's one of the things that I talk probably more than anything to the kids that I coach about, but I was a guy that fell into the kind of I don't want to say the trap, but I fell into the cool parts of pro hockey. I was going out all the time. I would show up to practice and I smelled and I was a 20-year-old that I probably looked 16. But to me, I was like, wait, we're done with practice at noon and we have nothing else to like. So guys will go, hey, let's go get lunch. We'll go and that turned into dinner and turned into, it's funny because looking back, I go, like, I was a very young 20-year-old. So I loved, and I still to this day, there's nothing I love more than being in a room full of people and sharing stories. I get infatuated with meeting new people and telling stories and go, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Like, that's like a obsession with me. I love doing that. So I kind of fell into, I could afford to, here, I'll get that table, a couple of drinks, and I'll come tell them stuff like Rocky Balboa, just walking table to table, tell them story. So that was kind of what I had, I loved that part of it. And I've told a lot of players, I coached this my rookie year, which I've been thankful. I actually was able to talk to them recently and tell them that I'm pushing on about 10, 11 months sober.
Hell yeah, dude.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
But I was at about 4.5 years and had a little bit of a slip, which happens, and had to get myself back on the wagon. But I'll never forget, guys, like that you want to talk about things that I tell younger kids. Like, we were in the middle of a losing 9-10 game losing skid, and our coach comes in, hey, Paul is coming to talk to you guys. Paul Holmgren was our general manager, played for the Flyers for a long time, next to John Hines, most intimidating human being I've ever met in my life. Had a crew cut. Guys would say he like floated when he walked. He had this real kind of slow walk, and he would ask you a question and you would answer it, and for 30 seconds, he would just kind of stare at you, and it was like you would get chills. I would like, what did I say that's wrong here? So he comes down to meet with our team, and I can remember I'm telling you guys, I remember what the guy wore that day. I remember everything about that meeting, every single part of that meeting. And he went through like 3 or 4 guys that were the few positives at the time. Don't change a thing. Danny Sivret, unbelievable defenseman that played in London. He was a guy that I looked up to a lot. Danny Sivret, Nate Gannon, 1 or 2 other guys. Don't change a thing you're doing. I'm sorry that you don't have more support from this team, but don't change a thing. You guys are playing great. Went to one guy. You and I are from Minnesota. I'm embarrassed to be from the same state as you. Went to the next guy. He said, you want to know why you're not playing? Take your shirt off, and I'll tell you why you're. So guys are all looking at each other like, oh my dear God.
Am I going to be next? What's he going to say about me? Yeah.
So rewind to what I was just telling you. A month before, I had gotten in trouble for walking. I walked into the rink at 9:02, and you got to be there at 9 o'clock. And I'm guessing this was before I knew. I was such a naive kid. I was a 20-year-old pro, and I didn't realize genuinely that you smelled like alcohol after a night of drinking. Like, I didn't know this is after college. I just didn't drink a ton. I didn't really drink that a lot in college. So I didn't know that was a thing. So I would walk into the rink and be like, well, nobody knows that I was, and our assistant coach, Kjell Samuelsson, who was a Swede, thick Swedish accent.
One of the tallest people you'll ever meet.
Tallest people ever. He'd walk in the locker room. It smells like a brewery. And I would kind of like, I'd run in the shower and, like, oh no. So it was a couple weeks before I'd showed up late after a night out. And so he goes around, like I said, Paul goes around the whole room. And right before the meeting ends, where's Rat? And I like my whole stomach like sinks, and I kind of put my hand up. And so he turned around, he goes, and this first part is not a pad, it's just part of the story, but he said, I love the way you skate. There's nobody that skates like you. And it's really sad to me because you're going to drink yourself right out of this game. And he turned around and walked out of the room. So instantly 20 years old, it was like a flash. I remembered getting drafted, putting the jersey on, taking pictures. And I was like, oh my God, I just like my general manager thinks I'm 20 years old. I just got here. Like, I remember it hitting me like, oh no. And the tough part was, and that's again what I talk to the guys I coach all the time, is I love this game more than anything, but I didn't love it enough to shut that stuff off. Like to me, it was fun to be a pro hockey player. And, it took till after I was done playing to get away from it. I'm thankful that I did, but, I was also thankful that I had former teammates. You want to talk about guys who, love you and care about you. Tommy Sestito, I played with in, Syracuse and then Springfield.
Another great Central New York guy.
Unbelievable guy. And he was like a big brother with me. Like, we did everything together. My second year when we were in Springfield, we lived together. We did everything together. And he was very protective of everybody around him. And I remember calling him, and he was a guy that he and I had fun. Like, we had a good, he would tell you the same thing. But at the time, it was the end of my career, my last year pro. He had gotten married and had, I think, his first or second kid. And I had called him to tell him like a morning after story of basically getting in an argument with one of my teammates. And I was 30 years old. I was a veteran in the East Coast League. And he absolutely laid into me on this phone call, like laid into me. When are you going to knock this off? When are you going to stop this? And I remember it was the next day. That was it. I went 4.5 years after that phone call, because I still say to guys, it's really hard to look at someone you love, like your buddy, and go like, you're really not doing the right stuff. Like, you're being a pain in the ass. Like, this is not good what you're doing. You're not doing and he handled it the way I needed it, and to this day, he and I are still close, and I thank him still. So it was, that's why I know the question was a half an hour ago when he asked me, was what was the transition like? But that was, I think, the biggest part of it was I wasn't really ready for the glitz and glamour part of pro hockey. So that part was, as soon as it came, I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I almost shut off the working part.
The part that got you there.
Yeah.
Dude, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think you sharing that is going to help so many kids that are listening to this right now and provide them some perspective on life in general. But God, you have to, I do this all the time when I do my team building stuff. And I think this is so difficult for kids today. And maybe it was for kids, when we were younger and even younger than us, but to find friends that are able to have hard conversations with you, is such an unbelievably incredible thing to have.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I try to, when I'm giving advice to kids, is surround yourself with people who are going to be honest with you and not enable you. Surround you. And it's so rare. It's really hard to have hard conversations. That's why it's called hard conversations, right? But at the end of the day, it's such a valuable life skill to be able to initiate those conversations. And it's also such a valuable life skill to be able to handle those conversations when it's coming your way as well. And we can all probably sit here and think about times when we were younger where we wish we would have listened to that guy who was being hard on us, whether it was a coach or whether it was a buddy or whatever it may be. And there are times that I know that, like, there's guys that I've played with that I didn't have the hard conversation with him when I should have. Like, hey, buddy, you're going down the wrong road here. Like, you need to freaking straighten up. And,
Right.
And like you sit back when you're our age and hockey is long and passed us by. And Vex, you always say this, like, you don't want to be the guy sitting at the bar telling somebody a story about, I wish I woulda, or I wish I shoulda. And a lot of that comes down to, like, when we were that age, and I can think of plenty of times where people were saying things to me that would have helped me, but I was either too naive or too stubborn or whatever to really take in those hard conversations that were coming back my way. And like kids, like, it's such an unbelievable life skill to understand how to have hard conversations, how to initiate them and how to receive them. And if you can do that, I think you're going to put yourself so far ahead of everybody else that you're competing with. Like, it's a joke. And like, take this story and I could tell stories, Vex. I'm sure you could tell stories. We can all tell stories like the ones that you just told. Like, hard conversations are a good thing. Hard conversations are a necessary thing if you want to be really great at what you do.
And in my experience, anyways, I don't know if I've ever had a hard conversation that didn't result in there being a stronger bond afterwards.
100%, man.
100%.
You know what I mean? Almost every time. So
same thing when you get into like a fight with one of your teammates, like a real fight on the ice. Almost always, I'd say always, I was better friends with the guy after.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Me and Timmy got in a fight on our front lawn of our hockey house at Michigan State, and I remember all the guys were like, "What in the hell is a man?" And next day, he knocks on the door. We live together. And he knocks on my bedroom door. He's like, "Let's go get something to eat." Gives me a big hug. I'm so sorry. You know, like, and everything was great. Everything was fun. You know, like, that's kind of how it goes.
Unreal.
But those conversations between buddies, like, how much more impactful is it when you're having those types of hard conversations with your buddies or your teammates or your friends, rather than like a coach or a parent? Like, it just hits that much harder, you know? And that's why it's so important. Like, when like, it's the most impactful thing I do in my team building. We talk about accountability, and we talk about, like, number one, like, it's hard. It's hard to hold people accountable. It's hard to be held accountable when it's with your teammates, right?
Yeah.
But we have to understand that, like, you know, and I even do this thing where I'm like, what do you guys think? Do you think it's more impactful if your teammates hold you accountable, or do you think it's more impactful when your coaches hold you accountable? And they're like, well, it's my teammates. But yeah, but we got to understand that that's hard. We got to understand that people like to be held accountable in different ways. But I think the most important thing is we have to realize, and this is probably the hardest part, that it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That was the hardest part for me.
Yeah, like, you think when people are having hard conversations with you that they're digging at your character and they're telling you that you're a shitty person or whatever. At the end of the day, that person's probably just trying to make you better. That person's probably just trying to get you on a better path than maybe the path that you're going down. And you talk about, like, the Michigan State teams and all the championship teams that you've been on. I know from the teams that I've been on, like, the room was policed by the leaders. It wasn't policed by the coaches.
Yeah.
You know, it was a player-led locker room, and people weren't afraid to do those kinds of things. And it's like, those hard conversations are hard, but they're so powerful and building culture, but also helping people to be the best version of themselves too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important.
So, man, crazy stuff. Vex, I don't know if you've had any experiences like that where you've had somebody like, yeah. You're
like, I was waiting for like, you said somebody like, I was waiting.
Littering
I
and.
thought Tove's computer froze.
That's what I was like what?
Terrible hosting, terrible questions. No, is there anybody that had an impact on you, you know, as you were kind of coming up and, you know, that helped you kind of find your way a little bit? Anybody that you can think of?
Yeah. Well, so many people do. Cam Jansen was friggin' everything for, like, guys in St. Louis that are my age. Like, he he made it possible by us seeing him do it and then tell us like we could all, have a shot at that. And it was massive. And when he's like, don't be an idiot and go out and do stupid stuff, you're like, oh my God, okay, sir, I'll see you at the rink tomorrow morning. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, it's cool, man. It's really cool now that you're getting into coaching, and it's so cool to hear you even before we got on here. Like your voice just it ratchets up a level because you can tell how much you love it now, and you kind of got your start a little bit doing it with a guy that we had on the podcast not too long ago with Mikey Raja and his speed skills hockey thing, and I know you guys are really tight, and he brought you on board and loves you. And what's it kind of been like going from the other side now? Now you're the one that's having an impact as kind of the elder statesman. You talked earlier about having your brother that was older than you and you were always looking up to him, and now you're the mentor, not the mentee. So what's that kind of been like getting into the coaching side of things and having an impact from that side?
It's honestly, it's been unbelievable. I think I said to you off air that I when I was a player, I didn't know if I'd ever want to be a coach and didn't know if I'd be any good. Still don't know if I'm any good, but I've been absolutely infatuated with it. And it's Mikey has been my best buddy since we got traded to the Syracuse Crunch about a week apart. And we were best friends ever since. I stood in his wedding, and the way he'll tell the story is that he badgered me for 5 years to move out here, which I guess he did. That is part.
Oh, he did, because he would tell me about it 5 years ago. He'd be like, "I'm trying to get Ratter here. I'm trying to get Ratter here."
And the funny thing is, man, it's I was working for the city in Buffalo, and it was a good job, a good paying job, pension, benefit, the whole thing, and I missed the game like absolute crazy. It was killing me. And I wanted to be around it. And so I started doing a little bit of coaching. I did skills development work with the Junior Sabres in Buffalo. So I would 2-3 days a week, I would go there and work with basically every age group that they had, and which I loved. I was there with Patty Coletta and Nick Tuzzolino. And so it was
what a big meet.
He was the one he was essentially the one that called me to come in and work with him, which I love Tuzzy. I've known him since I was 14. So it was awesome to get into it that way. When I moved out here with Mikey, it was great it was cool to me as far as it's my best buddy. And you see, like, I show up to the joke I always made when I first got here was like, no one cares if Coach Rad is showing up. Like every time I would come by myself, it was, where's Coach Raja? Like, every time, because I was the new guy, right? So I would, after like 3 weeks, I'm like, Mike, can you tell these guys that I used to play so they don't think I'm like a janitor or something? Like I played somewhere, like. So, but it was cool to see like these kids loved Mikey. They loved being around him, and you actually watched him get better and like really. And Mike is like a scientist when it comes to teaching skating and teaching different parts of it. And we have a funny dynamic. I tend to be a tad more intense about things, and he kind of has to wind me back a little bit. But I also, it's like, we do video with the kids when we have our summer camps, and all about different skating strides and mohawks and different edge work, all this different stuff. And the one thing I repetitively say is Mike's always had a nicer, like a prettier looking stride, because he's got real long legs, real long stride. And I have short bow legs. So everything was like short kind of bunny hop steps when I skated. So to me, it's even this transition from, I still work with Mikey too, but from going to the skills development work to working with Cortland, I absolutely love working with the kids that Mikey and I work with. Even one of the last games that I coached for Cortland, 1 or 2 of them were in the stands, and we're
nice.
So it's, that part of it is unbelievable. Like, it's cool when you see them around the rinks. But I said to Mike, constantly, I want to be back with a team again. Like, I want to work with kids, and they're like my play. Like, you know, it's tough when I guess that
It's
part
so
was,
different. You're right.
yeah,
It's so
there's
different.
there's a little bit of a difference. And to me, I think I had an itch to get like more involved. Like I want to really work with off the ice, on the ice. Like work, like, as I told you, I had a lot of self-inflicted tough times during my career. So I want to work with guys on how to handle things, how to avoid that stuff, you know. So,
Oh yeah.
But it is funny as far as when you say being on this side of it, like you watch the different personalities and the different styles of play. And there's a defenseman who, and I've told him this a few times, and I go, it's in this regard, it's not a compliment, but I go, you're just like me. And it scares me because anytime the littlest thing goes wrong, he's angry and other guys are laughing because he's so mad. And I go up to him and I go, you're doing it. Like, you're doing it, man. Like, so like, and I had in my head, I go like, how I got to figure this out, because I used to normally get yelled at when I would get mad. Like if I would get real mad, it was kind of like, knock it up, like control yourself kind of thing. So I went up to him during practice the other day and I go, hey, I'm not hanging out with you again for the rest of the week until you stop doing it, because this is not fun for me. This is no fun at all. So until you stop. And he burst out laughing, thank God. And luckily it was like the rest of the day he kind of laughed and whatever. Now that won't always work, but it is cool to like that part of it. Like I always laugh. I go, this isn't a good thing, but you're just like that's how I was. And you know, but it is cool to like to see the different, like I said to a kid the other day, I really wished I was like you as a player, because he's like, everything is, you know, I'll make like, and I couldn't if I physically tried be like that.
Yeah, not a
You
chance.
know, so
You're speaking to two guys who are very much like that as well.
Nothing rolled
Yeah.
off the back. It just
No.
stayed right on the back.
The duck's
Raj,
back was
one
very
of,
sticky.
one of Raj's favorite stories about me in practice was when we played in Syracuse, and we had a drill that was set up for the defenseman to lose. It was a one-on-one drill, and it was an angling drill. So it was set up like you were kind of a step behind the forward, and we were told you're not supposed to, you know. And after the third rep that I got beat, I broke my stick over the post and it broke in two places. So like 3 pieces of it went flying. And the entire team, like guys were like, what in the hell? Like you're not supposed to win but I like, it was driving me nuts. I couldn't take it. And that's what this kid is like too. It's kind of funny. But yeah, being on this side of it, it's definitely a different perspective, but I'm very, very grateful for it.
Isn't that what coaching's all about, though? It's that relationship where you're trying to find what motivates guys. You're trying to find what helps them to make them tick. You're trying to build that relationship. Like I can't imagine, being that player. I can't imagine being that, because I've had coaches do it with me who've been like, "Hey, buddy, I've been there before." I've been there for, and I don't think there's any greater gift you can give to a player as a coach than shared experiences and letting them know how you got through some of the tough stuff and how you changed and how you did things really well too. And so, yeah. And when you can do that and you're around those guys every day, particularly college hockey is a little bit different too, where you're really in it with these guys every day. And it's just so cool. And that's something I deal with right now, is like not being in a college locker room, which I've been for a lot of years. It's so different not coaching a team. It's different not being around, isn't it? It's just like absolutely crazy not having those relationships and those funny moments and those hard moments and everything in between. It's just, there's nothing better than that, man. Cool. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
So cool. So, well, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast. This was unreal, dude. This was unreal. So many things that I think are going to resonate with all the listeners that we have, whether you're a coach or whether you're a player. And such a great story. And we just appreciate you being so open and appreciate you hopping on and sharing some of your wisdom with us.
I can't thank you guys enough. I apologize for being so long-winded. I can't help myself at times, but I was really excited to jump on here and see you guys. Vex, I missed you. It's been a while, but
Been a while, bro. Yeah.
I don't know
it's
if
great
I've
to see
seen you since the party at the MAC house.
Yeah, it's been a
That might have
minute,
been a
man.
while. Yeah.
But I'm glad you're doing well. And if you had one piece of advice to leave our listeners with, parents, players, coaches, what would it be?
My biggest thing, I harp on the kids, if not every day, every other day, is compete and be an animal. When you're at the rink, compete hard. But when you're away from the game and away from the rink, be a soft, big-hearted, good person. Be good to people. Let them know that you're happy to see them and excited to be around them, and ask people how they're doing and listen to what they say. Like, I'm very big on engagement with people, and let people know that you see them and you care about them. And that's biggest thing with me is when you're at the rink, that's your time to dial in, work, and be a total animal. And when you're away from it, have a big heart and take care of people.
Hell yeah. Love
Unreal,
that,
man.
dude.
Great stuff. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Best of luck up there in beautiful Central New York with the Cortland State Dragons.
Yeah.
And we'll be watching. Thanks, man.
All right, fellas. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.